Okay, 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of That Millwall Podcast. You've got myself, Omer, today. I'm joined by a special guest. We've got Elliot Jackson from the Championship Chat podcast. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. So, just as everyone bring up to speed, Elliot's arrival for tomorrow's game. We've got Sheffield Wednesday, obviously, tomorrow away at Hillsborough. Elliot, you've obviously kind of had a bit of an interesting week with Sheffield Wednesday at the minute. We'll fly straight into it, mate. I mean, obviously, the point deduction story. Bring us up to speed if you don't mind. Obviously, it's gone from 12 to 6 points, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's only Sheffield Wednesday could have a week where they play one game and pick up 9 points after losing the last 4. But yeah, absolutely. So obviously the team's was on a pretty dismal run after losing 4 in a row to Brentford, which no one was really bothered about. Brentford at home can turn anyone over, no concerns there. But pick up 0 points from Luton at home, Rotherham away, and then Wickham away, and not score any goals in the process. It's fair to say that the pressure was on Gary Monk just a lot. So it was looking very precarious for him. Unbeaten Bournemouth obviously rock up then on Tuesday at Hillsborough. Wednesday haven't won a home game for 251 days since February. And then obviously in typical Championship fashion, they turn him over 1-0 with a penalty from Barry Bannon. And then, so that obviously gets them on to -1 because we were on -4 before that with the points deduction. And then the result from the EFL appeal comes back. So Wednesday were docked 12 points, as I'm sure everyone's aware, for the start of the season. That seemed relatively generous, given that they could have applied it onto last season, which would have relegated the club if they'd had the -12 then. Still baffled that people don't seem to understand the difference between this case and Wigan. Wigan's is absolutely completely different. They went into administration, so there's no subjectivity to it. If you go into administration, you lose 12 points, whereas this was hotly contested by Wednesday, hotly contested by the EFL. It was a court case that they got charged about a year ago today, so it's been going on for 12 months now. They lost 12 points. Wednesday appealed, and the independent panel who gave them the initial deduction reviewed it. Didn't dismiss the deduction totally, but did decide that the punishment was too heavy and gave them 6 points back. So they were briefly off the bottom of the table and up to 5 points, only for Wickham to then go and win in the 90th minute at Birmingham on Wednesday night and drop us back onto the bottom of the table. So yeah, certainly looking a lot better. Only 3 points off safety now, off Forest, Derby just above us, and Wickham up to 7 points, so they're on 22nd. So yeah, it's a very interesting couple of weeks, to be fair, after the week we had last week, and then 9 points later, and things looking a bit more rosy.
Obviously, you're extremely biased in regards to the situation where you got 12 to 6, but it was for financial fair play, right? So breaching, like obviously in regards to what the EFL set, isn't it? So you breached financial fair play, and obviously you got hit with a 12-point deduction. I mean, you didn't get it last season, which was good for us because you relegated Charlton. So Millwall fans loved that, a little one-up on Charlton, because Charlton fans being upset is always a good thing for us. But so is it because the severity of it, they deemed it to be too severe, or what was the ground on it?
The way it works, and for the record, Wednesday did it. They broke financial fair play, so they deserved the punishment. So I mean, I'm not biased in that way at all. Wednesday definitely they tried a bit of clever accounting and it backfired. So they tried to sell the stadium, Hillsborough, to balance the books against the financial fair play, because Wednesday spent millions in the first 2 to 3 seasons under Dave Ponchansiri. He came in, Wednesday heavily underinvested anyway. In the squad, they were struggling around mid-table, and obviously for a club the size of Wednesday, got bought and then started chucking the money around, and it nearly worked. They got to the playoff final in 2016 to lose 1-0 to Hull at Wembley, and then lost on penalties the following season after finishing 4th to Huddersfield, who obviously went up that season. So 2 really close bites to the cherry under Carlos Carvalhal, and then things went wrong, badly wrong. Finished injury-ravaged season. Carlos got sacked. Jos Luhukay comes in. They finished about 14th. Mm-hmm. Steve Bruce then comes in the following season, gets them to about, I think they finished 12th, but really good signs. And then he leaves in pre-season to go to Newcastle. So again, more upheaval, more upturn, and all the while, once they've struggled to balance the books, we've sold 2 players under Dave Ponchansiri in 6 years, which was Jack Hunt in 2017 and Lucas Yao last summer. So the big problem with Wednesday's been balancing the books. We brought in players, had a really bloated squad, and then not been able to get them out. And then we've done that last 2 seasons, but they've all left for free. So like Fernando Forestieri, Stephen Fletcher, Sam Hutchinson, Sam Winnell, these players that would have commanded fees left for free. So obviously it's good because it's got them off the wage bill, but equally they've not recouped any money, especially with Forestieri when they turned down £12 million from Fulham after the first season. So
Crazy.
That's been the big problem with that. So they tried to basically did the stadium sale, tried to put it through the accounts of the 17-18 season, did it too late, and it went through the 18-19 essentially. That's what the EFL argued. And therefore, by not having it through the 17-18 accounts, they broke financial fair play for that 3-season period. So basically, they tried to do the stadium sale, but did it in the wrong year because the land registry showed it was done a year later, which seems a really basic error to me as someone who's not into accounting in the slightest. But it just seems if you're going through all the vigorous loopholes of trying to get around FFP, it seems like a very obvious error to make. But here we are 12 months later, that's why they got done, for trying to get out of it with the stadium sale and not being able to sell it in the right time frame. The accounts for the 18-19 season are still not out, and they should have been out in July, well, March even, or July, and they're still not out. So it's been a bit of a mess. Like I say, they tried to sell the stadium, but did it in the wrong year, so got done. 12 points. Birmingham obviously got deducted 9. And the way that works is they were done. You can get up to 21 points, basically. So you get up to 12 for how badly you break financial fair play, which is a sliding scale. And Wednesday broke it more than Birmingham did, so they got 12 points for that. And then you can get an additional 9 points if the independent panel deduces that you've tried to lie or cover it up or mislead, which Wednesday were cleared of. So despite the EFL claiming Wednesday tried to do that, they were cleared off. So they didn't get the 9 points for an aggravated breach. That's the correct terminology. Right. But they did get a full 12-point blast for basically smashing through FFP by about 60 million.
It's a lot of money, mate. I mean, I look at obviously, I look at your squad, for example, and even in the summer, you're able to, I know they're all loan signings, but you're talking Jack Marriott, Aidan Flint, Callum Patterson. You know, these are players that will be commanding decent wages. The same with Izzy Brown from Chelsea. Like, if I'm a Millwall fan, for example, we've signed Kenneth Sahor, who is probably on a decent wedge compared to what we normally pay. But how can you go through the financial fair play scenario and still afford to get these wages? It's not, I mean, you'll probably look at it from yourself thinking you're not spending a lot of money, but they're still players on decent salaries, I'd imagine.
No, they absolutely are. The thing I would caveat to that is the fact the amount of wages that have gone out this summer is what I would say. Stephen Fletcher on 30 grand a week, Forestieri on 25 grand a week. You know, a lot of deadwood in the squad that have been on 15, 20 grand a week. So I would agree with you. And a lot of Wednesday fans, including myself, are really happy with the summer business. It was better than we expected. Certainly to attract players into the building, although it's a really big club, obviously it's not the most attractive proposition to come in knowing you're going to fight relegation with a -12 deduction. We were really pleased to get Izzy Brown in particular because he was the creative spark that Wednesday have lacked. It's all been on Barry Bannon from deeper positions. So to get him through the door was a really good one. We needed strikers. We only had Jordan Rhodes as the only senior striker on our book because Fletcher went, Newey went, Winnell went, Lucas Shaw sold the summer before, Fletcher went as well. So they'd not got any strikers into the first game of the season. They literally only got Jordan Rhodes. So to get Windass, to get Kachunga, Patterson and then Jack Marriott was a big one for me. One I was really happy with, although he's not had the greatest start. I was really happy to get Marriott, and I'm hopeful he'll be the source of goals because they're still looking to replace Fletcher's 12 from last season, and Jacob Murphy was second top scorer as well with 7, who obviously went back on loan went back to Newcastle after his loan spell. So replacing the goals has been the big one. From a wage point of view, it would be because so many went out, to be honest, is what I would say. They've bought a couple of players, but I know they only spent like $500,000 on Patterson, $500,000 on Windass, and the rest have been loans or frees, as you say. But yeah, because so many went out the door, that freed up a lot of wages. Probably the best part of 80, 100 grand a week on the wage bill, because that's how many players that went out.
Gotcha. Jordan Rhodes is a crazy one. I can't believe he's still Sheffield Wednesday player. I mean, I remember you guys signed him. Was it in January from Middlesbrough, wasn't it?
Yeah, January 2017 it was.
And I remember seeing it thinking, you know, like obviously he went to Middlesbrough after being so good at Blackburn and Huddersfield, being prolific. I thought that's a real good sign for you boys to kind of kick on at the time. But I think he went to Norwich, didn't he, on loan and stuff like that. And for him to still be at your club on your book still, it amazes me a little bit, if that makes sense. I know it shows he obviously got.
No,
is it still the same deal from 2017 as well? He's on, or is
yeah. He's not signed a new contract. His contract's up this summer, and again, he's another one that's on 30 to 35 grand a week. So he's probably the club's top earner now. But he has been pretty abysmal, and that's really sad for me to say, because I don't think there's a single Wednesday fan out there that didn't want this deal to work. I don't think there's a single Wednesday fan that, without hindsight, didn't want the deal to happen. So it would be wrong to say it was awful business. With it, obviously it is in hindsight, but nobody knew that at the time. Jordan Rhodes was absolutely prolific in the Championship. Like you say, he did so well at Blackburn up front with Rudy Gestede. Went to Middlesbrough, didn't do too badly, got him a few goals to get him up, and then didn't really get a kick in the Premier League for 6 months. And then Wednesday got the chance to buy him, so we got him on loan for 6 months, £2 million loan deal, which with the obligation to buy him for six. The following, so he's the record buyer, 8 million if you add the two together, and it's just not worked for him. He's had 3 different managers now, in 4 actually, in Carlos, Jos Luhukay, Steve Bruce, Gary Monk, and Lee Bolin in caretaker spell. I suppose you could count as 5, that they've just not been able to get the best out of him. But because he is the enigma of Jordan Rhodes, and these stats pop up on Sky every now and again, that he's still like the 5th highest scorer in the decade in the Championship, that some fans are still think that they can rediscover it. It's not going to happen. He's been at the club for 3.5 years. His goal scoring record's rubbish. The thing for me is, it doesn't offer anything unless he's putting the ball in the back of the net, and that might sound a bit stupid, but there are some strikers that when they play, even if they're not scoring, they're good. They've got pacing behind to threaten, or they can hold the ball up really well, or they're a good link man. Rhodes offers none of that. He's not quick. He's not particularly strong. He doesn't hold the ball, and that's not me trying to bash him. That's just not the player he is. He's a 6-yard box poacher, similar to a Billy Sharp, for example. He doesn't offer a great deal outside of putting the ball in the back of the net. So if he's not putting the ball in the back of the net, he offers you very little, and it's hard to justify a place in the team for him.
No, I get that. I mean, so when I look at Sheffield Wednesday, obviously you're probably on stature, a big club in our division. You should be probably at the right end of the table instead of the bottom end, but obviously that's not how football's run these days. But I look at Sheffield Wednesday and I see your results, and then sometimes we'll go through Twitter and then you click on a full-time result, and that's always a good indication to see what the fans are thinking underneath. Gary Monk gets pelted by you lot, doesn't he? I mean, he's obviously, what was the vibe at the time when he first came in? I remember you lot last season, maybe Christmas time, decent run of form. I remember playing you lot
at Christmas.
Yeah, I remember playing you boys at Hillsborough in February, I think it was. I was thinking it was a ball 0-0 for us, and we took it at the time. We was quite happy with that. But I mean, on that day, it was kind of not a special game. You saw bits and bobs of why you boys were probably at third at Christmas, like you said. But it's kind of just down south since then, hasn't it? Or
absolutely, yeah, absolutely bombed. We were third at Christmas, as I've just said, and finished last season 16th. So pretty abysmal. Stoke finished above us in the end by a place. We might have been 17th actually, and Stoke was 16th. But yeah, absolutely bombed. So started really well. It was a really weird situation because obviously Steve Bruce left 2 weeks before the season started. So Lee Bullen was in caretaker charge for the last couple of pre-season games, and then the first 6, I think it was, of the season. And he got a couple of wins, a couple of losses and a draw, and it was a bit of a meh sort of start. And then the club went and appointed Gary Monk. And the weird thing was, Gary Monk had been out of work, so there was no reason for the delay, really. And I think that's what put a lot of Wednesday fans off. It put me off. It didn't put me off, but it didn't seem as sexy an appointment had he done them. They'd done it straight away. I quite like Gary Monk. I liked him before. I thought he did a really good job at Birmingham. I thought he was harshly sacked at Leeds and Middlesbrough. Well, he sort of left Leeds in a bit of a cloud rather than sacked, but I thought he'd done a decent job. So I'd been quite an admirer from the outside anyway. Certainly for his work at Birmingham. Again, he had a points deduction there and dealt with it really well. But it was the delay that just didn't help, and it just felt a little bit underwhelming because of the 6-week delay to just get him in when he was available all along. But he had a really good start, as I said, and we were well aware that the club needed a clear out. Everyone has been. We needed to finally have some closure on those couple of seasons where we got to the playoffs and we were spending big. And we knew there was going to be a massive turnover of players in the summer. And Monk kept talking about that. We got to third at Christmas, and then things just absolutely fell apart. And as I say, they've won 2 home games this calendar year. The last home win was against Charlton in February, and then they won on Tuesday night. So home form's been abysmal. They got turned over 5-0 at Brentford, 5-0 at home to Blackburn, although they did have a man sent off in that. And 2020 has just been awful in terms of form. I think they've won 6, well, it's now 7 out of 33 games they've won. The last 33, which is pretty horrific, was 6 out of 32, obviously, before Tuesday night. So it's more the run of results. He's been dealt a lot of bad hands in the fact that obviously we've had a points deduction looming over the club for a year. He didn't bring in any of his own backroom staff till the summer. So he nearly went a full season without his own people, which I absolutely respect him for. And I was very much of the opinion that, yes, the results aren't right. They're not really good enough, but he's not had his own pre-season. He's not had his own backroom staff. He's not got his own squad. Give him till the summer. Let him rebuild. We've got, like I say, we had about 8 players out of contract. Clear the books. Bring some fresh blood in. And I was quite supportive of him. I wanted him to stay. That was a very split opinion. I think 40% probably agreed of my stance, and 60 wanted him out. And then obviously when you have a start to the season, Wednesday didn't have time to wait with a -12 deduction. And then when you lose 3 games in a week to Luton at home, Rotherham away and Wycombe away, with scoring 0 goals, it is pretty indefensible. But obviously, so I was at the point after the Wycombe defeat where I was about ready for a change, just because I didn't. It was one of those things. I have a massive gripe with people that always trot out the age-old line of, oh, he's lost the dressing room, the players aren't playing for him. That was not the case, and it's still not the case. The players have always been playing for him, but there's a difference between them not playing for him and him getting the best out of the group of players, which is where I thought he was letting himself down a little bit, especially with those 3 defeats. But the players have always been behind him. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion. And I wanted to succeed, so I'm really pleased that they obviously got the win on Tuesday, and then the 6-point addition will naturally take the points off him, because it means Wednesday can afford to give him a little bit more time, and hopefully he'll turn those results around. But yeah, split fan base. A lot wanted him gone, particularly after the Wycombe defeat. I'm happy to say that I said on our podcast, and so did my colleague George, who's a Sheffield Wednesday fan who is on the pod with me. We were both about ready for a change after the Wycombe to not even score a goal and lose to 3 teams that, although Luton have had a really good start, 3 teams that you would expect to be fighting against relegation, as well as Wednesday, to lose to all 3 rivals, not score a goal. It just seemed like he wasn't getting enough, but hopefully that'll turn around now.
It highlights what the championship's about, though. Because I think
absolutely.
It's strange because obviously you lost to Luton, lost to Rotherham, lost to Wycombe. We played all 3 of them at the start of the season, so far this season as well. We beat all 3 of them, and it's like, but then you've turned up and beat Bournemouth. So obviously, was it a result you guys deserved midweek? Was it like a good performance kind of against all odds, or?
Yeah, by all accounts, definitely it was a much improved performance. Bournemouth obviously rocking up to Hillsborough unbeaten as well, so they've not lost any of the first 10 games. We're at 11 now, so they've not lost any of the first 10, although there's quite a few draws in there. And the verdict from the Bournemouth sort of side was they turned up with their best 11 as well. David Brooks was playing, Josh King up front. A back 3 of Chris Mepham, Steve Cook and Lloyd Kelly is good enough to play in the Premier League, never mind the 100%. Championship. So with Asmir Begovic behind them. So when you've got Lewis Cook on the bench, Dominic Solanke on the bench as well, it just shows the strength and depth they had. We essentially lost to a couple of League One sides and then go and lose to a Premier League, go and beat a Premier League outfit. So it's very Sheffield Wednesday. It's very the Championship, and that's why we love it. But no, it was a deserved win by all accounts. But didn't really create anything, lacked some incision in their play. I'm not sure the 3-4-3 really suits them that well. I think a back 4 would suit them better. But Wednesday defended a lot better. Some good individual performances in there, and a Stonewall penalty. Josh Windass taking the ball round Begovic and getting bumped by Steve Cook, very similar to a red card Tom Lee's actually got at Rotherham, very, very similar, where he's gone around the goalkeeper and then got bumped. He got a red card. Bannon scored the penalty, and they saw it out. And obviously conceding late goals for Wednesday has been a massive problem under Gary Monk, and generally speaking, I think they've conceded the most in the league after the 85th minute over the last 12 months or so. So to see that one out was a really big win, and get a clean sheet as well.
So 3 at the back is something you boys play as well, as much as us. So I mean, I don't know how much you know about how we set up and stuff, but we're very similar in the sense that we play 3 defenders, Jake Cooper, Sean Hutchinson, and sometimes Murray Wallace, Alex Pearce. So is that something Monk switched to in recent times, or has it been something he's done all along? Or
no, we were playing a back 4, and it was after lockdown. So it was after everyone came back in June that Wednesday switched to a back 3. They've not played a back 3. Played it under Jos Lukai a little bit, but not predominantly in the last 6 years or so. They've played a little bit under Lukai, and Monk's gone to a back 3. It suits some players better than others. It suits Tom Lees massively, who dropped out of form because he's not the best at distributing the ball. So having him in the centre is perfect because he's a really good pound for pound defender. So in terms of, as stupid as it sounds, kicking and heading and general organisation, he's really good. He's not the quickest either, so it protects him having Iorfa on the right, who's absolutely rapid. And it suits Iorfa because he used to play at fullback and now he's converted to a centre back. So in that wide centre back role, that suits him really well. The left-hand side's been interesting because Juice Van Aken, who was got another big signing during the Carlos era for £4 million, who bombed, got sent out on loan the last couple of seasons. He was in the second division of German football for Bundesliga 2 last year. He's come in and had a resurgence in that left centre-back role, and he's really talented on the ball, and we've known that for a while. It's just getting him up to the speed of the Championship and the physicality of it, which he struggled with. So he suits that left centre-back role a lot, but Julian Borner doesn't particularly, who had a really good spell at the start of his Wednesday career in a back four, but struggled pretty much ever since Christmas, as the team did. His form has been pretty similar to the team's. Started really well and dropped off, but I think wing-backs the big problem for Wednesday. They've got a few players. I think Monk's tried 4 different combinations of wing-backs in the opening 10 games, so he's not found the right players to fit those roles. We've been playing Kadeem Harris sometimes on the left wing-back, sometimes at right wing-back. Adam Reach has played on the left and then in midfield, and finding the right balance up front. But I think for me, it's all right for now. I think I'm a bit concerned about the wing backs. I think you've got to have the right wing backs to play this system. I'm not sure Wednesday found the right combination and balance there. I think they could get away playing 4-4-2 pretty similarly, because we've got fullbacks like Liam Palmer, for example, is a really good fullback, a really good right back, but he's nowhere near good enough offensively to play as a wing back. He's more suited if he's playing in the back three to playing right centre back, but they haven't really got a left back at the minute because Morgan Fox left to join Stoke in the summer. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It'll be an interesting clash with, obviously, like you say, you guys playing pretty much the same in a 3-5-2, and you know, I think you've really adapted to that well. You've got, like you say, Jake Cooper's a centre half who I really think's really top class. Definitely could see him potentially making that step up to the Premier League, which is something Millwall have done really well. They picked off players from the Championship clubs that weren't necessarily as valued as they should have been. Obviously, Cooper, for example, at Reading, not really getting a game, goes to Millwall, would now walk into the Reading team pretty much. Ryan Woods is another one. I'm a massive Ryan Woods fan. Still find it weird how Stoke have let him go on loan, especially after the money paid for him. Obviously, it was Rowett that brought him in.
He's a sort of player that we don't normally associate with Mill, if that makes sense. He's not your typical Mill midfielder, so to speak. Like Mill fans, we love Ben Thompson, for example, who's like all tackling, no nonsense, up and at him, so to speak. Woods is a luxury player, but in a sense, he's key to what Ray wants to do there. So like he ticks things over, makes things work, and he makes players like Cooper look better, I feel like. So like he's important to have in there because he's just composed. And we played Preston a week ago. We got a nice 2-0 win away from home, and he was key to that one. Was like just picking it over, the transition, quick turnover to Bennett and Jed Wallace up front, with obviously a striker next to him. So it does work, and it'll be interesting. I mean, I look at Sheffield Wednesday. You still got Barry Bannon, you still got Josh Windass and stuff like that. Are these like the key players we got to watch out for on Saturday? Or
yeah, Bannon definitely. Bannon's the captain now. He got the armband off Tom Lees in the summer, made that change. But yeah, Bannon will definitely play. Massimo Luongo is a massive miss at the minute. He's injured and he's probably not going to be fit for that game, so he would have been another one. Them two as a midfield pair have really complemented one another. Luongo, like you say, a bit like Thompson, more of a destroyer, and it gives Bannon that licence. Izzy Brown's another big one, but he's been injured, so he had a really good start to his career, but he's not played the last 4 or 5 through injury. He was on the bench against Wickham, on the bench against Bournemouth in midweek, so I'm hopeful he'll come into the team, because he adds that extra creative spark and just gives Bannon a little bit, you know, you could mark Bannon out of the game and you've marked Wednesday's creative threat out of the game a little bit if Brown's not playing as well. So them two will definitely play. Up front's been interesting. They've rotated. It was Patterson and Marriott for a long time, for 3 or 4 games, which I think is probably Wednesday's best pairing still. But Windass came back into the team on Tuesday night, and he did really well. So I wouldn't expect any changes, really. It wouldn't surprise me if Monk stuck with the same team. So probably Kachunga and Windass up front. He could potentially play Windass slightly deeper if Izzy Brown doesn't play, and play Pelly Pessi Bannon, Windass as the number 10, and then maybe Patterson comes in to combat, obviously, the more physical threat that Millwall will offer compared to Bournemouth, for example. So could do that. Probably will do that, actually, in my opinion. Play Windass, Patterson and Kachunga as a trio, probably up front.
Kadeem Harris also being suspended, is that a miss? Obviously, he seems to be been ever present for you boys, and I think he's playing on the left hand side. Is he on the wing back by the looks of it? Is he going to be a miss?
Yeah, he's been switching right and left, so sometimes he's playing left. It depends if Adam Reach plays, but they have appealed it, so they're hopeful that will get rescinded, and he'll be able to play. And if it does get rescinded, he'll start. I would expect him to play again. I can't even see him changing the back 5 too much, given the fact that they've kept a clean sheet in midweek, which the only thing he could do is bring Tom Lees back in, who was suspended, and then his wife gave birth in midweek, so he wasn't involved then. And he's probably been Wednesday's best defender, but you keep a clean sheet, you might keep that the same. Or
Sure.
I'd imagine Liam Palmer might come out, Iorfa move to right centre back, and Lees will plot back into the centre. But I can't imagine too many changes after that long awaited home win.
So is Monk, if we turn up and win tomorrow from Millwall point of view, is Monk on borrowed time a little bit again, or is the consensus, hopefully a clean slate and kick on after midweek news? Or
I think for me, the midweek news definitely buys him more time. It does, in my opinion, anyway, because he has overhauled the squad massively. I think they brought in 8 players in the summer, so that is a massive overhaul. You do need time to do that. Obviously the difference is when you've got -12, you don't have the luxury of that time. Whereas with -6, it does give Wednesday a little bit more wiggle room. But then we've got an international break, which everyone knows is notorious in November for making a change. I don't think they will, even if they lose, because Chansiri is a very loyal chairman. He likes to give his managers time, which is something he probably doesn't get enough credit for. He's not a hire and fire sort of manager. Although we've had a few managers in the last few years, that's because of circumstances and the fact Steve Bruce left. No one wanted him to leave. So things like that. He's not, we had Carlos for 2.5 years. Jos left after a year because he was doing rubbish and the fans wanted him out ages before that. So he's stuck by his managers, generally speaking. Even if they lose on Saturday, I wouldn't expect a change. And I wouldn't push for a change, particularly as a fan, because I think with the 6 points has just helped, gives him a little bit more time. And I want to see Monk succeed. I like a lot of what he says. I like the approach he's trying to do and what he's trying to do for the club. I can see the long-term vision. He's just got to get there quick enough that they don't get relegated. And that's the payoff. And when it was -12, obviously you don't have that luxury of time. But now they've got 6 points back. I'm more willing and to give him a little bit more time. So no, I wouldn't expect a change if they do lose at the weekend.
Okay, valuable insight as always. Thanks for that. I mean, I'll press you for one more question before you go. What's your prediction for tomorrow's game, mate? What are you thinking? What's the heart saying for you there?
I think Wednesday will back it up with a point. Personally, I could see this being a 1-1 draw or maybe even a 0-0, as dull as that would be. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm hoping, although we've had so many false dawns, that probably won't be the case, that Wednesday will be able to kick on from the midweek result, from a good home performance as well, which has been, like I say, 251 days between home victories. So I'm hoping they'll kick on. I would take a point. Millwall are a really tough side. They've been really good away from home as well this season, which is it's been a weird one. I've found it really strange looking at the Championship that Preston, Cardiff, 3 teams who probably got the best home form last season can't buy a win at home and seem to be winning everything away.
I think with us, I know it sounds silly, but I think the no fans is a big factor for us. I think, especially our side. Like I think Rowett, what was so great what he done is when he came in, he kind of brought players in that would, win the fans over instantly. We had Jason Willoughby all over from Brighton last season. Players that would put a tackle in and also get the fans and the atmosphere going. A bit like Sheffield Wednesday, I feel like when we go to Hillsborough, when you lot get going, it's always it's quite intimidating place to go to, and you do make a noise, especially when you're in that away and sometimes tacked away. So, I mean, I think we've missed the fan factor. Everyone has, but I think in our case, I do feel like it's a little bit more for us. But the good thing that Rowett's done is this 5 at the back has made us so unbeatable. I think it's 10 clean sheets in 15 games away from home, which is amazing. Something that, if you draw your away games and win your home games, you're normally in a good position, except we're just not winning the home games at the minute. So,
you're doing the opposite. You're winning your away games, trying to pick up a point at home. Yeah, I found it weird. Like I said, Cardiff have been very similar, and Preston have as well. They were so good at home last season. The complete opposite. Preston have won, like I said, they've lost all their home games and they've won 4 away and drawn 1. So very strange, you 3 clubs in particular.
Yeah, I agree with you with the draw tomorrow. I mean, on Norwich the other day, we set out to play for the draw. We took a couple of players out, rested some players. Mason Bennett comes back in tomorrow, who's a big player for us. And I think he has that kind of raw pace and he's a bit direct on the ball. So if he has a good chance against Dom Iorfa, obviously, who you've got probably playing in the opposite position, that would be an interesting little battle there. So if he maybe comes out on top, it could be hopefully a match-winning contribution. Jed Wallace always kind of floats in and out. So we'll have to see with that one. But yeah, no, I appreciate your time today, mate. I think it'll be a good game. I hope we get the 3 points, but I think a draw is probably a fair reflection, I think, of what's going on at the moment. So, yeah, thanks for your time as always.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. So that's Elliot Jackson from the Championship Chat podcast. So be sure to check him out if you haven't done so already. So, nice one.